What if dinosaurs had become intelligent? This is something that has crossed my mind and probably many others while watching Jurassic Park or its derivatives. But this question goes far beyond fiction. It touches on evolutionary biology, genetics, and even philosophy. In fact, it's not just about dinosaurs. What if some animal, maybe a chimpanzee or a dolphin, had been the one to evolve intelligence comparable to ours? Today, we will talk about what would happen if these giant reptiles had evolved intelligence similar to ours. But before continuing, we would like to make a brief comment about intelligence. Intelligence is not a singular thing. There are multiple forms of intelligence depending on how it's measured. For example, there is linguistic intelligence, logical mathematical intelligence, spatial intelligence, musical intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, etc. In the case of dinosaurs, let's suppose they developed the same general intelligence as humans. That is, they could solve problems, use tools, and create complex strategies. This is the kind of intelligence that allows us to build spaceships and also understand the consequences of eating too much sugar. But wouldn't dinosaurs with human-like intelligence be more interested in how to create giant space lasers to take over the galaxy? No, of course not. If dinosaurs had developed such intelligence, they would be just as diverse as they are today. Some would be more interested in breeding programs, others in programming, and others in playing games on mobile phones. They would basically be the same as humans, only with scales and sharp teeth. Maybe those who prefer golf would wear protective clothing so as not to rip their arms off when hitting the ball. And maybe those who were dedicated to breeding programs would have armed themselves with sticks to protect themselves from overly aggressive fans of other teams. Okay, but let's think bigger. Would a dinosaur with human-like intelligence be able to perform surgery or write novels? Possibly yes. Intelligence is largely related to brain size, and although the absolute size of the dinosaur brain was greater than that of the human brain, the ratio between its brain size and body size was not as favorable as in the case of humans. In fact, the brain of an Ankylosaurus was disproportionately larger than that of a T-Rex. Ankylosaurus did not exhibit signs of great intelligence. On the contrary, according to Bob Baker, professor at the State University of New York at Stony Brook, the dinosaur with the largest brain for its size was the herbivorous Myasora. The question is, does a large brain guarantee intelligence? Not necessarily. Other factors come into play. Some scientists believe that intelligence is determined by the number of connections between neurons, not by their size. But even if the dinosaurs had managed to increase the number of connections between their neurons, would they have developed human-like intelligence? We don't know. But it's likely that they would have developed their own unique intelligence, which may or may not be similar to ours. Just think of dolphins. They have a large number of neurons connected to each other, which gives them the ability to recognize themselves in the mirror and develop complex communication systems. However, they are far from having human-like intelligence. Evolution doesn't always follow a straight path, and there is no guarantee that a creature with a certain genetic makeup will become more intelligent. Evolution is influenced by countless factors, and sometimes it seems to prefer to prioritize other qualities over intelligence. For example, size. The trend towards gigantism has appeared several times throughout evolution. Our planet has been home to gigantic creatures that dwarfed any dinosaur, such as the 33-meter-long and 200-ton blue whale. Size is not everything. However, being bigger has its advantages. A large body can withstand extreme temperatures, support significant muscle mass, and store enough fat to survive without food for many days. Being smaller allows for quick movements, rapid growth, and early reproduction. In other words, big and small organisms have chances to thrive. But what about medium-sized ones? A study published in 2019 in the journal PNAS suggests that medium-sized animals are more vulnerable to climate change than larger or smaller ones. According to Nicholas Royal from the University of Queensland, medium-sized animals face a tough challenge. Medium-sized mammals have difficulty surviving in warm climates because they lose water quickly but cannot cool their bodies efficiently. At the same time, in cold climates, they have trouble staying warm without becoming too big. Faced with this problem, medium-sized animals have evolved more slowly. This means that their genes change more slowly. And if intelligence is linked to genetic changes, then medium-sized animals have less opportunity to develop it. This could explain why dinosaurs with human-like intelligence never appeared. Throughout their reign, the Earth experienced frequent and significant climate changes. Dinosaurs of all sizes thrived during the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous periods. But as the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event approached, things began to change. The asteroid impact that caused it is well known, but previous studies indicate that it wasn't the only cause. The end of the Cretaceous was marked by drastic climatic changes, including ocean acidification due to increased carbon dioxide levels. Many scientists argue that these events eliminated the opportunities for dinosaurs to evolve intelligence. Small dinosaurs would have needed a lot of energy to fuel their brains, but they couldn't find enough food due to the breakdown of ecosystems. Larger dinosaurs needed less energy, but evolution seems to have acted against larger brains in those conditions. Thus, the asteroid would have dealt a fatal blow to those dinosaurs with the greatest intellectual potential. Even if some of them had managed to survive, their chances of developing intelligence similar to ours would have been slim. But what if dinosaurs had somehow acquired human-like intelligence before the end of the Cretaceous? Let's imagine a world where this happened. How would history have unfolded? Robert L. Carroll, professor at the University of Chicago, believes that intelligence is the key to survival. He argues that if animals aren't smart enough, they can't adapt to environmental changes and go extinct. If intelligence is essential for survival, then dinosaurs with human-like intelligence would have survived the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event. Carroll notes that the emergence of intelligence is associated with major environmental shifts, such as the collision of continents. These collisions led to the formation of mountain ranges, valleys, and new habitats, which favored the diversification of species and the emergence of intelligence. In other words, the environment forced animals to evolve intelligence. If dinosaurs had developed human-like intelligence before the end of the Cretaceous, they would have been able to adapt to the changing climate and survive. But what would life on Earth be like with dinosaurs among us? Although dinosaurs disappeared 66 million years ago, their relatives live among us today. Birds descended directly from theropod dinosaurs, the group that includes velociraptors and Tyrannosaurus rex. Therefore, if birds with human-like intelligence exist, so do dinosaurs. This raises another question. Would the appearance of dinosaurs with human-like intelligence upset the balance of power in the world? Some people might think so, but others might not see it as a problem. In fact, dinosaurs with human-like intelligence might be our allies in the fight for the future of humanity. At a conference at the Society for the Study of Evolution in June 2023, biologist Chris Canali suggested that dinosaurs with human-like intelligence could have helped prevent the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event. Animals with human-like intelligence would have been able to foresee the asteroid impact based on their observations of the night sky. They would have seen the bright light of the impact and understood that something terrible had just happened. So they would have taken measures to ensure their survival. Perhaps they would have built shelters, stored food, or created some other system to help them endure whatever was coming. Canali says that they could have passed on their knowledge to subsequent generations and possibly saved many species from extinction. According to the scientist, this is plausible given that animals today exhibit remarkable abilities to predict disasters. For example, birds fly away from areas affected by volcanic eruptions, and elephants leave forests that are about to burn. Animals are capable of extraordinary feats when their existence is at stake. They can travel hundreds of kilometers to escape rising waters or migrate to new habitats when their usual sources of food disappear. In short, dinosaurs with human-like intelligence could have saved themselves and possibly many other species. And who knows? Maybe in some parallel universe they did just that.